All right, back up for batch number 2. So far, I have taken out the fire block. So there used to be some fire block, you'll see right there. Took that out, so I'll get better heat transfer. I just got everything hooked up. The preheater is attached. I'm doing a quick flush, getting the preservative out of the membranes from last weekend, and then I will be all set to go again. And there we go, nice big new transformer. So yeah, that should do much better this go around. All right, here goes. I just finished the flush. Right now I'm running with everything wide open, still pulling a little water off, but the point now is to get everything set so I can start boiling. So my concentration right now is pretty much what it was as sap, maybe a slightly more, but I got to fill the pan so I can start tonight. And that's a full load of wood. I smush the coals down and then I cram as much in there as I can get. This batch, I have a boil going from the front to the back of the pan. What I did differently is the smokestack. There's a damper on there. You can kind of see it there. That's been opened all the way up, so it's unobstructed. The blower now has been dialed way down. So this is under half output. And you can see it's 130 CFM blower. So maybe 60, 70 CFM. And what I've noticed is that the door is running a little cooler. There's no flame coming out here. And my boil, instead of being right here, is the length of the pan. So I'm getting a much better combustion. Something else I did not expect, the wood consumption has drastically changed. I was having to fill the firebox every about 30 minutes. Now I'm running about 50 minutes. So I set an alarm for 45 and then I get my butt out here and load it. So yeah, 50 minutes versus 30 to burn through a load of wood. Something else I've noticed, I'm picking up about 9 to 11 degrees Fahrenheit with this. So my sap in the tank is about 43, 44, and I'm getting it up to around 52, 53. So that's helping me too. Overall, the RO output is up as well. Running about 2 gallons more an hour, and that's total output. I just checked my numbers. So last time I ran the RO, I ran 6.5 gallons per hour concentrate and 8 gallons per hour of water or permeate. And that was at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Now I'm running at 52 to 54 Fahrenheit with the RO. I'm pulling off 9.5 to 10 gallons of water an hour, and I'm producing around 9 gallons an hour of concentrate. Total output right now of evaporation plus RO is right around 18 to 18.5 gallons per hour of steam and water being removed. So everything is running super smooth. I'm running my second flush of the operation. I was able to go 3 hours. In that time, my output dropped from 19.5 gallons of 50-50 down to 16.25 gallons per hour. And I need to flush now if I want to keep up with the boil. This unit has been the star of the show today. Here's how it works. I just have a simple on-off switch. This is 110 volt AC. Comes into a transformer. That transformer is then hooked up to a motor speed controller. It's like 20 bucks online. And that gives the 12 volt DC power the ability to vary the speed. Because DC motors, so direct current motors, you can vary the speed. AC motors, you can't really do that. There's ways, but it's way too complicated. Any direct current motor you can turn into a variable speed motor. And this is the quickest, easiest way to do it. This is just a rubber adapter thingy. It came from a home center. You can find these in the plumbing department. And then from there, this is just exhaust pipe. It gives us really nice control of the flame. So because I'm able to control the fan, I can just open everything else wide open. So the chimney is wide open, there's no obstruction, the damper is not dampening, and everything is controlled by this guy. And by doing that, I can really control where the flame is. So if I meter it down, I'll get a boil across the entire pan. If I crank that thing wide open, I get a boil on the front of the pan only, and then really nothing over there. So that fan controls everything for the boil. It is absolutely essential. And that's why we have a spare one in the basement, because at 20 bucks, why not? So I've been boiling for about 11 and a half, 12 hours, and I've just been crushing it. With the combined output of the RO and the wood stove, taking off about 19 gallons an hour. And that's the best I've ever seen. And it's consistent too. There was one point where it got a little sketchy. The water in the pan got up to, or the sap in the pan got up to about 4.5 inches depth, a little deeper than I like. I had to crank up the blower, and by doing that I was able to increase the heat and kind of cook that off. Seems like the deeper the pan, the harder it is to get it to boil, the less efficient. Running about 3 inches to 3.5 inches seems to be the sweet spot, and that leaves me plenty of leeway. That way I don't have to worry about going too low and running out of water. So I just dialed that back a little bit. I was full throttle, but now it's kind of come back down. You can see I got a good boil in the front of the pan here, all the way along, all the way to the back. I just noticed something. Look at the smokestack. Not even any smoke. That fire is hot and it's burning off everything. So super efficient combustion right now. And I'm burning hard maple. The 275 gallon blob is almost empty. I transferred over to one of the barrels, or garbage cans rather. There are 32 gallons full of sap remaining. I'm just draining off the last of this tank. I'm gonna cross the 275 gallon mark here very shortly. Only my second boil over the whole process. Not too bad, at least. It's easier to foam it now that it's starting to get concentrated. What's in the pan right now is 285 gallons of sap, missing some of the water. The boil's just about done for the night. I've been piling the coals in the center over the blower, just trying to use them up. The morning of another finish. This batch promises to be close to 10 gallons today. I think I will start by cleaning out the ashtray and starting the RO. 2 ashtrays full of coals. Burning maple. This is still quite hot. And that affords me the opportunity to keep a few and use as a fire starter. And that's 30 seconds after starting the blower, so looks like the coals are going to work. While I wait for my first boil on this finishing morning, I'd like to go over what this is, what it's made out of. The white aluminum shroud is actually the splash cover for a Xantrex inverter. They don't make that inverter anymore. That was 12 years ago. The copper pipe is just flexible copper tubing from your general home store, Menards in my case. This piece of metal is a leftover leaf spring. There is the bracket, which is C-channel. That's screwed to the furnace. The sheet metal screws are left over from doing the roofing on the treehouse. The piece of C-channel is left over from reinforcing the railings at the cabin. These springs are actually from the inside of a mountain bike fork. This washer is the top of a strut I replaced on my wife's car. And this piece of metal that I bent, I have no idea. I think it's an axle shaft from some piece of yard equipment. I have no idea. Came from my dad. So that's why you keep stuff, or at least the useful stuff. All right, boil's just about started. I was talking to Dad, and we have some predictions. I think it's about 10 gallons we're gonna pour off. Dad thinks 10 to 10.7. I could look at the spreadsheets and see what it should be. I think I'm just gonna wait and find out. Only about 2.5, 3 hours away now. And then it's time to bottle that sweet, sweet syrup. So I'm sitting here waiting for a boil. And I realized I've never told the story of the wood burner. If you look at the wood burner closely, you'll see what looks like a lot of apprentice marks. That's not my welding, that's not Dad's welding. That's the welding of a bunch of high schoolers. Yeah, that's right. This wood stove was built by a high school shop class. Wasn't too bad. It cost the price of a pizza party and the metal. Now keep in mind, this was the price of metal 10 years ago, so it wasn't too bad. Of course, we did have to buy fire brick and add that to the mix, but overall, not a bad deal. And this is something the shop class has been doing for a few years. Now the pans, on the other hand, those were professionally welded. Turns out, you don't want leaks or bad welds when you're filling it with 20 plus gallons of boiling valuable liquid. All right, here's a look at the fire and the boil. And let's see what kind of heat we're getting here. 550, 560, 630. Not too bad. And 380 in the middle. I did a little test this morning. I ran the RO with cold sap at 45 degrees, and then I measured it again with warm sap, running it through the heater coil on the back of the stove. The temperature went from 45 degrees from that cold sap up to 59 degrees. I picked up 14 degrees Fahrenheit. What that happened as a result, without changing any settings on the RO, my pressure dropped from 140 psi to 136. The water being removed, gallons per hour, went from 7.7 to 8.5. The concentrate coming out went from a Brix of 5.3 to 6. Overall flow did change a little bit. It was 14.2 gallons per hour when it was cold, and it dropped to 13.8. Here's just a quick look at the spreadsheet that I'm using, as well as my reflection. Thought that would be some interesting data. It's the end of season. I just did a 20-minute flush of the membranes, meaning I opened all the valves wide open and just pumped pure water through it and pure water out both lines. So just wash the membranes. Now I'm going to put a new filter in. So I had a thought. So I'm going to try and heat my water with the wood burner. So you can see I have all the lines circulating through this purified water. And I'm going to see if I can bring that up to about 80 degrees by using the RO preheater. I mean, this is the off-grid cabin after all, and we like to use solar and wood and stay away from those fossil fuels best we can. Mostly because we're cheap. The boil on our stove works so the blower controls the speed of the boil, and the damper on the smokestack determines where the boil is. So if this is wide open, it's going to push the boil towards this end. If it's closed down, it'll push the boil that way. So the trick is getting this set so the boil is just right, and then metering the pump so I don't make foam. About 2 Brix to go, right up around 56 right now. We're gonna pull off at 58. There will be a little more after that, and we figure 58.5 is what we should be at given the temperature of the sap. I know 59 is considered ideal at boiling, but we are running hotter than that, around 218. I don't know if you can hear, but this thing is barely moving. Just a little enough to kill it. That's enough.
It's still cooking down a little.
That's why we killed it a little early. There, I got it. Way in the back. Now, if I did this right, there should still be coals. And we're gonna heat up the pan and heat up some water to make cleaning a little easier. So, hopefully that lights. No, little one, quick. This is the wood pile. It was 3.5 feet tall, 16 feet long, the section, so we used 1.75 face cord to make 15.5 gallons of maple syrup. So not too bad. And that's a wrap. We're gonna let this sit outside for a day or two, make sure there's absolutely no coals, and then it's gonna go back into the garage till next year. And here's a quick preview of what's coming next year. So I have my hoses nicely collected. I had some leftover bungee cord from an old tent and some ash devils from a project. So I made these little cord ties. Also, on the unit, I put wheels on the bottom. It is much easier to move now, which is great. So I can just slide it through doorways a lot more efficiently. Also, as I learned, it got pretty heavy when all the canisters were full of water, which is how it is when it's in operation, and I have to bring it in from the cold to put it in the cabin so my lines don't freeze overnight. Also, I've decided to go with the chemicals and measuring devices in this container, and on the flip side, I added another container that's see-through, and that's where all the pipe fittings and spare parts are gonna go, so I keep everything on board. One other thing too, you'll notice there are 2 holders there and 2 right there. This is gonna go from 3 membranes to 5 membranes for next year. And these holders are pretty cool. They're just PVC. I did put with contact cement some little rubber grippy things. That way they will grip these guys and they won't fly out or slide out when I'm moving it around. So there you go. That is the device in its final form. And looking forward to going from about 9 to 10 gallons of water removed per hour this year to about 15 to 16 gallons per hour removed next year. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this thing and looking forward to next year.